Travel.
Dialogue 1.
Planning a trip.
Do you have any travel plans for next year?
Yes, I'm planning a trip to Southeast Asia. I've always wanted to visit Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. I'm also interested in visiting Japan and South Korea.
Those are all great destinations. What are some of the things you're most interested in doing on your trip?
In Thailand, I'm interested in seeing the temples in Angkor Wat, exploring the bustling streets of Bangkok, and relaxing on the beaches of Koh Samui. In Cambodia, I want to visit the Killing Fields and the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. In Vietnam, I want to see the Halong Bay, the ancient city of Hoi An, and the bustling city of Ho Chi Minh City.
Those sound like amazing experiences. How are you planning to save money on your trip?
I'm planning to travel during the shoulder season, spring or fall, to avoid the high prices of the peak summer months. I'm also planning to stay in hostels and Airbnbs instead of hotels, and I'll be cooking my own meals instead of eating out. I'm also planning to use public transportation instead of taxis or rental cars.
Those are all great tips. Here are a few more things you can do to save money on your trip. Consider traveling to less popular destinations. Popular tourist destinations tend to be more expensive. If you're willing to travel to less popular destinations, you'll likely find better deals on flights, accommodations, and activities. Look for package deals. Package deals can often save you money on flights, accommodations, and activities. However, be sure to compare different package deals before you book to make sure you're getting the best deal. Use credit cards that offer travel rewards. Many credit cards offer travel rewards programs that can save you money on flights, accommodations, and other travel-related expenses. Be sure to compare different credit cards before you choose one to make sure you're getting the best rewards program for your needs.
Thanks for the additional tips. I'll definitely keep them in mind when planning my trip.
No problem. I'm always happy to help people save money on travel.
I'm also considering taking a language course before I go on my trip. I think it would be helpful to be able to speak a little bit of Thai, Cambodian, and Vietnamese.
That's a great idea. Learning a little bit of the local language can go a long way in terms of making your trip more enjoyable and rewarding. It can also help you save money, as you'll be less likely to be overcharged by taxi drivers or vendors.
Thanks for the encouragement. I'm definitely going to start learning some Thai, Cambodian, and Vietnamese before my trip.
You're welcome. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time on your trip. Southeast Asia is a beautiful and fascinating region with a lot to offer visitors.
Dialogue 2.
Packing.
I'm so excited for our upcoming trip. I've already started thinking about what to pack.
Me too. I'm always trying to find ways to pack light, but it can be tough.
What are some of your essential travel items?
I always pack my passport, wallet, phone, charger, and a small first aid kit. I also like to bring a travel pillow and blanket, especially if I'm flying.
Good idea. I also like to bring a reusable water bottle and a travel journal.
How do you pack for different climates and activities?
I usually start by making a list of the activities I'll be doing on my trip. Then, I pack clothes that are appropriate for those activities and the climate. For example, if I'm going to be hiking, I'll pack comfortable shoes and clothes that I can layer. If I'm going to be swimming, I'll pack a swimsuit and sunscreen.
That's a good approach. I also like to pack a few versatile pieces that can be dressed up or down. For example, a black dress can be worn for a nice dinner or for a casual day out.
Any tips for packing light?
Sure. Here are a few. Roll your clothes instead of folding them. This will save space in your suitcase. Pack layers so that you can adjust to different temperatures. Wear your heaviest shoes on the plane and pack your other shoes in your suitcase. Bring travel-sized toiletries. Leave behind any unnecessary items, such as hair dryers and curling irons.
Thanks for the tips.
No problem. What are some common packing mistakes to avoid?
I think the biggest packing mistake is overpacking. It's easy to get excited about a trip and want to pack everything, but it's important to remember that you can always buy things if you need them.
Another common mistake is forgetting to pack important items, such as your passport or wallet. It's a good idea to make a packing list and check it off before you leave.
Thanks for the reminders. I'm feeling more confident about packing now.
Great. I'm sure we're both going to have a wonderful trip.
Dialogue 3.
Transportation.
What's your favorite way to travel?
I definitely prefer to travel by plane. It's the fastest and most convenient way to get around, especially if you're traveling long distances.
I agree. Planes are definitely the fastest way to travel, but I also like to travel by train sometimes. It's a more relaxing way to travel, and you can see some beautiful scenery along the way.
That's true. Trains are a great option for shorter trips, especially if you're traveling between two major cities.
Do you have any tips for getting around in a new city?
Sure. One of the best things you can do is buy a city pass. This will give you access to public transportation, as well as discounts on attractions and museums.
That's a great idea. I'll have to look into that.
Another tip is to learn a few basic phrases in the local language. This will help you communicate with locals and get around more easily.
Good tip. I'm always trying to learn new languages.
Finally, be aware of common transportation scams. For example, some taxi drivers may try to overcharge you or take you on a longer route.
Thanks for the tips. I'll definitely keep them in mind.
You're welcome. Have a safe and enjoyable trip.
In addition to the above, here are some common transportation scams to be aware of. Fake taxi drivers. Some people will pose as taxi drivers in order to scam tourists. They may offer you a ride at a lower price than the official taxis, but they may take you to a different destination or overcharge you. Pickpockets. Pickpockets are common on public transportation, so be sure to keep your belongings close to you and be aware of your surroundings. Overpriced tickets. Some ticket sellers may try to sell you overpriced tickets for buses, trains, or other forms of transportation. Be sure to check the official website or app for the correct price before you buy. Fake city passes. Some people may try to sell you fake city passes. Be sure to buy your city pass from a reputable source, such as a tourist information center or the official website of the city.
Dialogue 4.
Accommodation. Conversation 1.
What type of accommodation do you prefer when you travel?
I usually prefer to stay in hotels. I like the convenience and amenities that they offer, such as a 24-hour front desk, room service, and a fitness center.
I can see why. I like to have a place to relax and unwind after a long day of sightseeing.
Exactly. Plus, I appreciate the security that hotels offer. I know that my belongings are safe and that there is always someone available to help me if I need it.
What are some tips for choosing a good hotel?
I always read reviews before I book a hotel. I also look at the location, price, and amenities that are important to me. For example, if I'm traveling with my family, I'll make sure to book a hotel that has a pool and a playground.
That's a good idea. I also like to check the hotel's website to see if they have any special offers or promotions.
Another tip is to book your hotel in advance, especially if you're traveling during peak season. This will help you to get the best price and avoid disappointment.
What are some common hotel scams to be aware of?
One common scam is when someone calls you and claims to be from the hotel that you're staying at. They may ask for your credit card information or personal details. Never give out this information to someone who calls you unexpectedly.
That's good to know. I've also heard of scams where people are charged for services that they didn't use, such as minibar items or movies. It's important to check your bill carefully before you check out to make sure that you're only being charged for the services that you used.
That's a good tip. It's also important to be aware of your surroundings and to keep your valuables close to you at all times.
Conversation 2.
I'm thinking about staying in an Airbnb next time I travel. Have you ever stayed in one?
Yes, I have. I stayed in one in London last year and it was a great experience. The apartment was spacious and clean, and it was located in a great neighborhood.
That's good to hear. What are some tips for choosing a good Airbnb?
I always read reviews before I book an Airbnb. I also look at the location, price, and amenities that are important to me. For example, if I'm traveling with my family, I'll make sure to book an Airbnb that has a kitchen and a washing machine.
That's a good idea. I also like to check the Airbnb's photos and description carefully to make sure that it's exactly what I'm looking for.
Another tip is to communicate with the host before you book. This is a good way to ask any questions that you have and to get a feel for the host's personality.
What are some common Airbnb scams to be aware of?
One common scam is when someone creates a fake Airbnb listing. The listing may look legitimate, but it will be for a property that doesn't actually exist. To avoid this scam, only book Airbnbs that have been verified by Airbnb.
That's good to know. I've also heard of scams where hosts charge guests for extra fees that weren't mentioned in the listing. It's important to read the listing carefully and to ask the host any questions that you have before you book.
That's a good tip. It's also important to be aware of the Airbnb's cancellation policy so that you know what to do if you need to cancel your reservation.
Dialogue 5.
Food and drink.
I'm so excited to go on vacation next month. I've always wanted to visit Thailand, and I'm really looking forward to trying all the delicious food.
Thailand has some of the best food in the world. My favorite travel food is pad thai. It's so simple, but it's so flavorful. I also love som tum, which is a green papaya salad, and massaman curry, which is a creamy coconut curry with chicken or beef.
Ooh, massaman curry sounds amazing. I'll definitely have to try that.
You won't be disappointed. It's one of my favorite dishes in the world.
Do you have any tips for finding good restaurants in a new city?
Sure. One thing I like to do is read food blogs and reviews before I go. That way, I can get a sense of which restaurants are popular and well regarded. I also like to ask locals for recommendations. They're usually the best ones to know where to find the best food. Another tip is to look for restaurants that are busy. That's usually a good sign that the food is good. And finally, don't be afraid to try new things. Thai cuisine is so diverse, so there's something for everyone to enjoy.
Those are great tips. Thanks.
You're welcome. Also, be careful of food and drink scams. One common scam is when someone offers you free food or drinks, but then they end up charging you an exorbitant price. Another common scam is when someone tries to sell you counterfeit food or drinks. A good way to avoid these scams is to only eat at reputable restaurants. And if someone offers you free food or drinks, be sure to ask about the price before you accept.
Thanks for the warning. I'll be on the lookout for those scams.
I'm sure you'll have a great time in Thailand. Just be careful of what you eat and drink, and you'll be fine.
Thanks for the advice. I'm really looking forward to my trip.
Dialogue 6.
Activities and attractions.
What are your favorite things to do when you travel?
I love to visit historical sites and museums, but I also enjoy trying new foods and experiencing the local culture. I'm always up for an adventure, whether it's hiking through a jungle or exploring a new city.
That sounds great. Do you have any tips for finding good deals on activities and attractions?
Sure. One tip is to book your tickets in advance, especially if you're traveling during peak season. You can also look for discounts and coupons online. Many attractions offer discounts for students, seniors, and military members. Another tip is to buy a city pass. City passes give you admission to multiple attractions for a discounted price. It's a great way to save money if you're planning on visiting several attractions.
Thanks for the tips. What are some common tourist traps to be aware of?
One common tourist trap is overpriced restaurants and shops. It's a good idea to do some research before you go so you know what a fair price is for things. You should also be wary of people who approach you on the street trying to sell you things. Another tourist trap is fake attractions. Some cities have fake versions of popular attractions, like the Eiffel Tower or the Colosseum. Be sure to do your research so you know where the real attractions are located.
Thanks for the warning. I'll be sure to keep these things in mind when I travel next.
You're welcome. I hope you have a great time on your travels.
Dialogue 7.
Safety.
I'm so excited for my upcoming trip to Thailand. I've always wanted to go there.
That's great. Thailand is a beautiful country with a lot to offer. But it's important to be aware of your surroundings and take some basic safety precautions, especially when you're traveling to a new place.
Thanks for the reminder. What are some of your top travel safety tips?
Here are a few. Do your research before you go. Learn about the local customs and laws. Be aware of any areas that are considered to be unsafe. Keep your valuables safe. Don't carry around a lot of cash or expensive jewelry. Leave your passport and other important documents in a hotel's safe deposit box. Be aware of your surroundings. Avoid walking alone at night, especially in unfamiliar areas. If you're feeling lost or unsafe, don't hesitate to ask for help from a trusted local or police officer. Be wary of scams. There are a number of common travel scams, such as the bird poop scam and the tuk-tuk scam. Be sure to do your research and be aware of these scams so you can avoid them.
Thanks for the advice. I'll keep those tips in mind.
You're welcome. Here's one more tip. Make sure to tell someone where you're going and when you expect to be back. This is especially important if you're traveling alone.
That's a good idea. I'll let my family and friends know my itinerary.
Great. Now go out there and have a wonderful trip.
Thanks. I will.
Dialogue 8.
Culture shock.
Have you ever experienced culture shock when traveling?
Yes, I have. I experienced it the first time I traveled to Japan. I was surprised by how different the culture was from my own. For example, people in Japan are very polite and reserved, and they have a lot of strict rules about social behavior. I also found it difficult to understand the language and the food.
How did you deal with culture shock?
At first, I felt a little overwhelmed. But then I realized that it was important to be open-minded and to learn about the new culture. I started reading books and articles about Japan, and I made an effort to meet and talk to Japanese people. I also tried to learn a few basic Japanese phrases.
Any tips for avoiding culture shock?
I think the most important thing is to be prepared. Before you travel, do some research about the country you're visiting and learn about the culture. It also helps to be open-minded and to be willing to try new things.
What are some important cultural norms to be aware of when traveling to different countries?
There are many different cultural norms to be aware of when traveling, but some of the most common include greetings. Different cultures have different ways of greeting each other. In some cultures, it's appropriate to handshake, while in others it's more appropriate to bow or kiss on the cheek. It's important to do your research and learn about the appropriate greeting for the country you're visiting. Personal space. Some cultures have a different concept of personal space than others. In some cultures, it's normal to stand very close to someone when you're talking to them, while in others it's considered rude to invade someone's personal space. It's important to be aware of the cultural norms and to respect people's personal space. Dress code. Some cultures have strict dress codes, while others are more relaxed. It's important to dress appropriately for the culture you're visiting. For example, in some cultures it's considered disrespectful to show too much skin, while in others it's perfectly acceptable to wear a swimsuit in public. Taboos. Every culture has its own taboos, which are things that are considered to be rude or unacceptable. It's important to be aware of the taboos in the country you're visiting and to avoid doing anything that could be considered offensive.
Thanks for the tips. I'll keep them in mind for my next trip.
Dialogue 9.
Making friends.
I love traveling, but one of the things I find most challenging is making friends. I'm usually pretty shy around new people, and it can be hard to know where to start.
I know what you mean. I used to be the same way. But over time, I've learned a few tips that have helped me make friends all over the world.
Great. I'd love to hear them.
Here are a few tips. Stay in hostels. Hostels are a great place to meet other travelers from all over the world. There are usually common areas where people can hang out, socialize, and cook meals together. Join group tours. This is a great way to meet people who are interested in the same things as you. You can find group tours for all sorts of activities, from sightseeing to hiking to cooking classes. Talk to people in your dorm or hostel room. Even if you're feeling shy, just try to start a conversation with someone. Ask them where they're from, what they're doing in town, or what their travel plans are. Be open to new experiences. One of the best ways to make friends is to try new things. This could be anything from trying a new food to going on a new adventure. When you're open to new experiences, you're more likely to meet people who are interested in the same things as you.
Those are great tips. Thanks so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
So, what are some tips for staying in touch with travel friends?
Here are a few tips. Exchange contact information. Before you say goodbye to a new friend, make sure to exchange contact information. This could be email addresses, social media handles, or phone numbers. Social media. Social media is a great way to stay in touch with travel friends from all over the world. You can follow each other's posts, send direct messages, and even create group chats. Plan future trips together. One of the best ways to stay in touch with travel friends is to plan future trips together. This could be anything from a weekend getaway to a multi-week adventure.
Those are great tips as well. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Finally, what are some common travel scams to be aware of when meeting new people?
Here are a few common travel scams. The friendly local scam. This is when a person approaches you and pretends to be friendly and helpful. They may offer to give you a tour of the city or help you find a hotel. But their real goal is to scam you out of your money. The fake friendship scam. This is when a person becomes your friend, but only so they can take advantage of you. They may ask you to borrow money or buy them something expensive. The romance scam. This is when a person falls in love with you online or in person, but only so they can steal your money.
Wow, I didn't know about some of these scams. Thanks for warning me.
You're welcome. It's important to be aware of the scams so you can avoid them.
Thanks so much for all the advice. I feel much more confident about traveling and making friends now.
You're welcome. I hope you have a wonderful time on your next trip.
Dialogue 10.
Sharing travel stories.
I just got back from a trip to Thailand, and it was amazing. I've always wanted to go, and it exceeded all of my expectations.
That's great to hear. I've been to Thailand a few times, and it's definitely one of my favorite countries in the world. What was your favorite part of the trip?
It's hard to choose just one thing, but I really enjoyed visiting the temples in Chiang Mai and going on a jungle trek in Khao Sok National Park. The food was also amazing, and the people were so friendly.
Those are all great experiences. I especially loved my jungle trek in Khao Sok. It was so cool to see all the different kinds of wildlife, and the scenery was incredible.
What's your favorite travel story?
My favorite travel story is from when I was backpacking around Europe. I was in Barcelona, and I decided to take a day trip to Montserrat. It's a mountain monastery with a beautiful basilica. I hiked up the mountain, and it was a bit of a challenge, but it was definitely worth it. The views from the top were amazing, and the basilica was even more beautiful than I expected.
That sounds like an amazing experience. I've always wanted to go to Montserrat.
I highly recommend it. If you're ever in Barcelona, be sure to check it out.
What advice would you give to people who are new to traveling?
My biggest piece of advice is to be flexible and go with the flow. Things don't always go according to plan when you're traveling, but that's part of the fun. Just embrace it and make the most of every situation.
That's great advice. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
What are some of the most memorable experiences you've had while traveling?
One of my most memorable experiences was when I was in India. I was visiting a small village in the Himalayas, and I was invited to stay with a local family. It was an amazing experience to learn about their culture and way of life. I'll never forget their hospitality and kindness.
That sounds like an incredible experience. I've always wanted to visit India, but I've been a little intimidated. Maybe I'll take your advice and just go for it.
You definitely should. It's an amazing country with so much to offer. Another memorable experience I had was when I was traveling in South America. I was in Peru, and I went on a trek to Machu Picchu. It was a challenging trek, but it was so worth it when I finally saw Machu Picchu in person. It's one of the most magical places I've ever been. I've also had some amazing experiences traveling in Europe. I love exploring the different cultures and histories of the different countries. One of my favorite things to do is to visit museums and art galleries. I've learned so much about the world through my travels. I think one of the most important things about traveling is to be open-minded and respectful of other cultures. There's so much to learn from the people you meet and the places you visit. I encourage everyone to travel as much as they can. It's an experience that will change your life for the better. I hope this gives you a better understanding of my favorite travel story and the most memorable experiences I've had while traveling.
Thank you for watching my English teaching video. I appreciate you taking the time to learn with me. I hope you found the video helpful and informative. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm always happy to help. I'm always working to create new and engaging English teaching content, so stay tuned. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing. Thank you again for your support.